I just want to know how he knows the color is purple.
What colours? What purple?
His accusation about the battery.
About I'm totally lost. What are you talking about?
He accused you of having a toy that the color was purple that you had to put a battery in.
Yeah. I have. I've got plenty of purple.
No, I'm just saying, how would he know the color?
Because he's seen them on one of my videos that I had my bedroom in it, and there was loads of sex toys in my bedroom, which there is.
Too much, man.
Oh, well, you asked. What you want? I made a video with my bedroom in it. There was lots of sex toys
I want props.
Now he's obsessed with my sex toys.
Barney, Nathan,
Hello.
does that purple dildo deviate in any way?
Some of them have got rotation. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate.
He's running away from me. I did invite him to come, but he's already making excuses.
It seems that way, at least.
Yeah, he says my video is lying. Can you believe it?
Yeah, like, on what grounds can he say that your video is lying? He never offered any proof for that accusation.
Apparently the balloon is tethered to something, even though I show it's not tethered to anything.
The balloon is tethered to something. Wasn't it Play-Doh or something? And it was in the inertial reference frame?
Exactly. I even showed it.
Sorry, this could be quite useful. So his assertion is that because it's tethered, it isn't drifting. You need to peg him down on what he's actually stating. So is his claim that because it's attached, you don't see drift? You need to peg him down on that. That's critical.
Yes, that's why I wanted him to come on. Because I wanted to actually debate him live on about it. But yeah, he's just a keyboard warrior that runs around.
So let's go on with that, Nathan, and see where you're going. So if he's claiming the reason you don't see drift is because it's tethered, then what would happen if it wasn't tethered?
Well, the implication is therefore, if the balloon isn't tethered, we'll see 15 degrees an hour deviation as Earth turns underneath the inertial reference frame the balloon is in when it's not tethered to Earth. Because obviously if it's not tethered, it's not attached, and Earth is claimed to rotate underneath at 15 degrees an hour. It's called Coriolis deviation. So you look at the balloon, and it looks like the balloon's moving away from you. If it's not tethered, it's just balanced with weights or whatever. Well, if it's just balanced, not attached, not tethered, then it would appear to drift away from you at 15 degrees an hour. That's the claim. I mean, it's not like we need Sly to confirm what they claim. They claim Coriolis deviation. You know, ball gets kicked from the football field, and from the stands looks like it curves through the goalposts. In reality, the ball is not actually drifting. Earth's rotating underneath. So it just looks like it's drifting through the goal. In reality, the goal moves under the ball. That's Coriolis deviation. So that's what they're claiming. So he's asserting Earth should rotate underneath that balloon if it's not attached. So you need to peg him down and actually get him to state that in line with their religious belief that that's the case. So just so we're all absolutely clear, Sly agrees with the rhetoric that if the balloon isn't attached, i.e. in an inertial reference frame, we'll see it appear to drift away. Because we're turning underneath according to the claim that is suggested to prove Earth spins. So yeah, peg him down on it.
So then SciManDan is wrong.
No, hang on. Let's carry this on. Why don't you take two balloons, tether one to the floor, and do the other one the way you did it, side by side?
Oh, I can do that. It's just going to
Yeah.
the same results there, but okay.
No, I know, but no, I know what's going to happen, and you know what's going to happen. It's very simple. You've said it before, and I've said it before. If you jump up in the air and you're up in the initial reference frame for 1 second, in feet, over 1,500 feet of Earth will travel west to east under me, and I think it's what, 460 meters.
Correct.
It doesn't work. It's not happening.
Yeah, well, I'm just waiting for his new video to come out. Apparently, he's got some debunking revelation video on me.
I'm really
just
pleased
waiting for that so I can dismantle it.
I'm really pleased, Flatzoid, because of your balloon. That spurred off a guy to super chat about SciManDan and his tweet, and from there we've had White Knight Rumpus come in and double speak his way every second breath about rotating together one reference frame, like SciManDan's claiming, and simultaneously saying, oh no, Bob's proved deviation, 15 degrees thereof, as, not that Bob claims this, they claim Earth turns underneath, second reference frame, deviation, ball goes through the goal because Earth turns underneath, second reference frame. That's their actual claim. Of course, if that was the case, you'd take off from Charlotte, North Carolina, travelling to LA, and LA would be coming towards you. Now, that's what you'd need to happen for you to look up at the plane and say, hey, it looks like it's drifting. Like you look up at the ball and go, hey, it looks like it's drifting through the goal. Same thing. You observing drift from the ground because you're spinning. That's the only way you achieve spin, is if you're spinning. So you're supposed to be on the ground spinning, that's their claim. And looking at things not attached, drifting. Now, they're not actually drifting, it's you turning underneath them. That's their claim. So, we've got a claimed 15 degrees an hour deviation as Earth rotates underneath an inertial reference frame, as per the globe claim that we've got drift. Then we get SciManDan telling us, here's your reference frames destroyed, no drift, at 15 degrees an hour as we need to prove Earth spins, because he's mentally retarded, doesn't understand his own globe claim. So this whole balloon that you've launched, no pun intended, has been the springboard to this entire conversation. And it's finally coming to a head. People are finally starting to get it. Oh yeah, they've babbled on so much. They've laboured the point so much that they think Bob proved 15 degrees an hour drift as Earth rotates underneath. That gyro, right? Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson says the same thing. Earth turns underneath a football because it's not attached. So we see this drift because we're turning underneath stuff. And we're attached as we turn underneath stuff that isn't attached. That's the claim. So, what have you got, fundies? 15 degrees an hour deviation as Earth turns underneath things that aren't attached to make them appear to drift. And turning underneath planes would shorten flight times. Is it 15 degrees an hour drift? Because that's a poison you're more than willing to swallow, then I'll point out we don't observe that. Or you can take the SciManDan approach and say, no, we don't have 15 degrees an hour drift. No drift. No proof Earth spins at all. I can assume it's all spinning together. Total nonsense. We've got multiple directions of surface winds. Obviously, that's ludicrous. And it doesn't give you 15 degrees an hour drift to prove it's spinning when you assume it's all spinning together. So flying in the face of a claimed drift that you all bark on that apparently Bob's proved. So all travelling together, no drift, or Bob's proved drift that would shorten flight times. You're going to be dying by one of these poisons, fundies, and we're all going to sit by and laugh as you do. Glad it's coming to a head, Flatzoid. Kudos.
Yep. It's funny because they say Coriolis and refraction, and we say there is Coriolis and there is refraction. We're not arguing what those words are and what they would eventually prove if done a proper test. But we say, no Earth-based Coriolis can be proven. And how'd you get 7 over 6R on your refraction? So they're actually giving us an argument against their own claim because there is no 15-degree drift, so there is no Coriolis Earth-based, and we can't see R to get a measurement. So how'd you get 7 over 6R for your refraction? No, I don't know how.
It's claimed to be 15 degrees an hour deflection as Earth turns underneath a football, as asserted by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Now, if Earth turned underneath the football, it's also turning underneath an aeroplane. It's only an observed effect, so therefore it's only you turning underneath something not attached. Therefore, in both examples, you've got to be turning underneath it for the effect to be real. That's their claim, but it would shorten flight times. A flight from Charlotte to LA would take an hour and a half rather than 4.5 hours if LA was travelling towards the plane for you to see it on the ground appear to drift because you're rotating underneath it. That's their claim. Now, to get around the fact that there isn't any drift observable in an aeroplane, a drone, a helicopter, and they claim there's observable drift in a bullet and a ball, is their rebuttal going to be, well, yeah, it's just because we haven't actually got a proof of Earth turn. It's not actually turning underneath anything. We just claim that with things in the air for a few seconds, even though they're debunked by a plane that's in the air for a prolonged period. And we should see it drift because we're supposed to be turning underneath it with Coriolis effect. Now, they're never going to admit that. They say, no, of course there wouldn't be any drift when we point out that there isn't any drift. They seem to side with us, but then assume Earth and atmosphere travel together. This is the whole blag. The blag is, assume Earth and atmosphere travel together when they point out nothing's drifting. There's no drift. When we get to the point we point out there's no drift, they say we wouldn't expect to see drift. Now that's come to a head, because I've got them by the balls. Dan showing no drift and me saying where's 15 degrees an hour. And their only rebuttal is to say we assume it all travels together. No drift then. So with Dan's nice example, with him held to account, I just wanted to go through this because I want to get it off screen. So I just want to actually read out what Dan's replies are. I'm demanding a response. What's your rebuttal? No drift in your example. Dan's response. The fact that the entire point of the trampoline video has been completely lost on you, quite honestly, makes my day every time you release a video on it. So his response is, you don't understand. And that amuses me. So an ad hominem attack. So if it's lost on me, maybe explain it. So I go on to, after pointing out that he's not actually responding, he's just ad hominem. Anyway, I go on to say, so, Dan, tell us the point. No drift shown by the guy on the trampoline. Feel free to detail how this helps Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim that we have 15 degrees an hour drift, shortening flight times when travelling west. Go. His response is actually to Mr. Sensible. So Mr. Sensible, again, excellent rebuttal. On topic, talking about drift, Mr. Sensible replies, Dan, he will never get it. I think he's more interested in fitting new batteries to his purple toy. Excellent rebuttal there. I did actually respond to him with his quote. At best, you have disproved the radius of the Earth. That was all I needed to respond to Mr. Sensible. But Dan chose to respond to Mr. Sensible and says, as I said, lost. That's the sum total of Dan's response. Merely an ad hominem and then a response to another ad hominem talking about dildos. That's what we get. I'm sorry, I've got a good sex life. That's not on topic. 15 degrees an hour deviation as the Earth rotates underneath a fixed frame of a gyro, as detailed by Rumpus, and claimed by many a fundy to have been proven by Bob Nodell. That's drift. Dan isn't showing drift. And he's not responding to why he isn't showing drift. He's saying it amuses him every time I bring it up and ask him to explain where the drift is at 15 degrees an hour, which I've continually parroted in that thread. So where's the drift? 15 degrees an hour, right? Bob Nodell proved it, apparently. But what? SciManDan's debunking it? Reference frames destroyed? Well, if your claim, with reference frames, 2 of them, drift, 15 degrees thereof, has been destroyed according to Dan, what have you got to prove Earth spins? An assumption in the face of multiple directions of surface winds that you've got a closed system with Earth and atmosphere travelling as one and no drift? Well, that doesn't give you drift. That doesn't give you your claim that Neil deGrasse Tyson says Earth turns under a football. That's a big problem. So, as I keep saying, Dan doesn't have any response. He's got his little white knight to defend him though, hasn't he? And he can come in and tell us how amusing it is to him. Well, he's an abject coward. He's having Rumpus come in and defend him with total doublespeak, claiming that Dan agrees with Neil deGrasse Tyson when Neil deGrasse Tyson claims Earth turns under a football and Dan shows a lack of drift. Let's just show that for the audience so I can round out this example. Here's Dan and his tweet to me, telling me all about how there's no drift, and then an example with no drift. So we need 15 degrees an hour. Dan's going to be known as No Drift Dan from now on, flying in the face of this supposed proof from Bob Nodell. Drift, right? 15 degrees. No. Dan's made it plain. Reference frames ruined, fundies. We don't need reference frames to make a claim about anything. You, on the other hand, need 2 of them and a drift at 15 degrees an hour. And Dan says those reference frames have been ruined and then shows no drift. Unlucky, fundies. Seems your poison is no drift, no 15 degrees an hour. Seems Bob didn't prove 15 degrees an hour. Reference frames ruined, no drift. That's fine by me. Take that poison all you like. Tell us there's no drift.
I just want to know how he knows the color is purple.
What colours? What purple?
His accusation about the battery.
About I'm totally lost. What are you talking about?
He accused you of having a toy that the color was purple that you had to put a battery in.
Yeah. I have. I've got plenty of purple.
No, I'm just saying, how would he know the color?
Because he's seen them on one of my videos that I had my bedroom in it, and there was loads of sex toys in my bedroom, which there is.
Too much, man.
Oh, well, you asked. What you want? I made a video with my bedroom in it. There was lots of sex toys
I want props.
Now he's obsessed with my sex toys.
Barney, Nathan,
Hello.
does that purple dildo deviate in any way?
Some of them have got rotation.
You
Nobody's
didn't
laughing.
get my prop pun,
It's
did
just
you?
me that's filthy. I know. I'm just filthy. I'm sorry. If
I'm
anybody
praying
finds
for
that,
you, but you should know my prop pun was good.
your prop.
Forget it. It's getting worse.
This is getting worse. Let's draw a line under this.
So, no drift. So then why are they arguing drift?
Yeah, why do they say Bob Nodell proved drift and then have someone like SciManDan tell me that there's no drift and show me no drift and tell me that their use of 2 reference frames and a 15 degrees an hour deviation as Earth turns underneath a fixed frame of a gyro, that's drift. Why he's telling me that those reference frames are ruined? I'll tell you why. Because they don't have any drift. And they need 15 degrees an hour. They keep barking on that Bob proved it.
Yeah, but Nathan, they keep saying snipers have to account for this drift, and artillery also has to account for this drift.
And they don't. But either way, they're claiming drift, aren't they?
Yeah, but if there's no drift, how in the world are they saying snipers are adjusting for it if there is none?
Yeah, they're not. There's loads of accounts. I pinned one guy, I don't know how true it is, to one of the videos where he's saying, I worked as a sniper and there's no drift. I don't have to account for it. There's plenty of accounts of people saying, no, that's simply not the case. It might say in the handbook, we don't use the handbook. We go out and we shoot guns. And we don't account for a Coriolis deviation that we don't experience. So I've heard that plenty of times. The reality is, I'll accept it. Okay, Mr. Sniper's handbook. There's no drift. Right? But the Sniper's handbook says there is drift. Okay. So Earth's rotating underneath the sniper's bullet at 15 degrees an hour, meaning he's got to account for that. Well, if the bullet's left the rotating reference frame and the sniper's watching the bullet seem to drift, it's actually Earth turning underneath the bullet, then anything not attached to Earth, like the bullet, would also exhibit this not actual drift, like an aeroplane not attached to Earth. I'd look up at the aeroplane and it seemed to drift. Oh, what do you know? That plane looks like it's drifting. It's not. I'm turning underneath the aeroplane. Like the bullet. Yeah? The guy is turning underneath the bullet to make it look like it's drifting. It's not. It's travelling straight. But he's turning underneath that bullet, so goes the claim. Well, that would shorten the flight time, because Earth would be turning underneath the plane, reducing a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA from 4.5 hours to an hour and a half, because LA is coming towards it, right? We're experiencing a not actual drift, because we're turning underneath bullets that aren't attached, like planes and drones and balloons that aren't attached. Yeah, you go up in a balloon, and then you come down in a different country, 15 degrees an hour rotated underneath you. No, that doesn't happen. No, Earth isn't rotating underneath. No, the sniper doesn't have to account for Earth rotating underneath his bullet. If he did, flight times would be reduced. So I don't mind that poison. You can take the other poison if you like. I don't mind the Dan poison not being taken. No, there isn't any drift. Oh, right, no 15 degrees now, no proof Earth spins. Yeah, I don't want that poison. I want the, there is drift. 15 degrees now, Bob Nodell proved it. Really? So Earth turns underneath a sniper's bullet because it's not attached to the reference frame that's spinning. Right, well, neither's a plane. Or a hot air balloon, or a drone. So on the equator, your drone would take off and it would seem to drift away at 1,000 miles an hour if Earth was turning underneath it. And that doesn't happen. So, yeah, feel free to accept that Earth is turning underneath bullets. Or footballs, as Neil deGrasse Tyson says. Earth turned underneath a bullet moving the goal. All right. Well, then it would turn underneath a plane. And that would shorten flight times. That doesn't happen, therefore Earth isn't turning. You're a ridiculous idiot that's asserting nonsense, Mr. deGrasse Tyson. The ball isn't drifting from the stands, or appearing to drift from the stands, because Earth's turning underneath that ball. If it was, you'd look up a bit higher, see a plane, and go, oh, that looks like it's drifting too, given that I'm turning underneath it. No, we don't experience that. Flight times would be reduced. Take your poison, I don't mind. Have me point out the flight times would be reduced with the Earth turning underneath at 15 degrees an hour, or deny it and have me point out you've got no proof Earth spins. Just an assumption in the face of multiple directions of surface winds that Earth and atmosphere travel as one, assuming your very outcome.
I love it.
I had
on,
the other night that they correct for Coriolis.
Can't correct for a not actual deflection. Coriolis is you looking up at something not attached to a roundabout. Like a lamppost. I look up at the roundabout as I spin with my child on a roundabout, and it looks like it's coming towards me and going away. Coming towards me and going away. Does the lamppost have to account for that Coriolis deflection I'm observing as I rotate underneath it? Given that it's not an actual deflection, it's merely me rotating underneath it. No, the lamppost doesn't have to account for me seeing it seem to drift. And likewise, a plane in the air doesn't get a radio command from ground control saying, ground control to flight 217, a man on a roundabout spinning beneath you seems to see you drift. Please account for this with your Coriolis indication equipment immediately. No, the plane doesn't get a radio command to account for someone on the ground who's claimed to be spinning underneath them, seeing them seem to drift. Because they're not drifting. It only seems that way because globers claim we're spinning underneath it. And we're not, because that would shorten flight times. If I'm spinning underneath planes to see them seem to drift, number one, that seeming to drift isn't actual, so the plane doesn't have to do a damn thing about it. And number two, that would shorten flight times.
We got him by the balls.
Yep. They even have to throw away Coriolis now. Everything's getting thrown away.
No, they've been arguing.
I even got Sly and Jeff today to throw away datums for measuring surveying. Apparently, it's just a dot on a graph now. So even geometry for them is gone.
When you ask questions of the ballers for the exact meaning of Earth-based Coriolis or what refraction is, they're going to say it always in the first go-around, where they feel it's going to support their globe model, because that's all the globe is a model. And then when you say, well, if you say that then, and then we bring our example, well, if the Earth is turning under the bullet, and if the Earth is revolving, and the bullet's going straight, but it would look like the bullet's curving, then it has to do that under the airplane. Then they change, just like a chameleon, they just change. So both sides of the argument, they hold positions on both sides of one argument. We only have one position on this argument.
Yeah, no drift. Earth isn't turning underneath anything is our position. If Earth was turning underneath, we'd see drift, as they claim we do. So they claim we do see drift, so show us drift. Oh, there isn't any drift, we wouldn't expect to see any. So you simultaneously have globe proponents claiming we see drift, Earth turns underneath gyroscopes. Because the gyro's not attached, it's in a fixed spinning reference frame, not drifting, not deviating. That's what gyros do. They stay spinning in the same place. That's their point. That's what it does. So if the cage moves around the gyro, it's because Earth's turning underneath that fixed frame. And likewise, a bullet travelling from the gun travels straight And the guy has to account for the fact that after it's left the gun and isn't attached to Earth, according to their claim, Earth spins underneath the bullet. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson backs this claim that we see drift because Earth's turning underneath stuff. Well, if it's turning underneath a football that's no longer attached, for us to see it seem to drift, then we'd look up a plane and it would seem to drift because we're spinning underneath it. Like we claim to spin underneath the ball and claim to spin underneath the bullet. We'd also spin underneath a hot air balloon. And we don't. Hot air balloon doesn't have the country that's 15 degrees away on a globe coming towards it an hour later. That doesn't happen. It just goes up and comes down. Your drifting drone isn't something you concern yourself with. On the equator, it's not drifting away at 1,000 miles an hour when you just stick it up in the air and don't press anything. You don't move the sticks, it's just hovering. But oh no, it's going away at 1,000 miles an hour! And then the guy next to you, clever dick, says, no, actually, it's just hovering. We're turning underneath because we've got Coriolis effect. What you're seeing isn't the drone moving, it's us moving underneath. That's Coriolis effect. Anybody ever have to experience that? Anybody got any clever dick mates that say, yeah, the reason your drone's disappeared at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator is because Earth is turning underneath and we're attached to it. So when it hovers, we're moving underneath it, right? Like, obviously, right? Because snipers have to worry about it. They fire a bullet and then they turn underneath the bullet when it leaves Earth. So that's why your drone's drifting away at 1,000 miles an hour. It's not, though, is it? Nobody's drone's drifting away at 1,000 miles an hour.
Felix Baumgartner in the Red Bull jump left New Mexico, went up, and when he landed, if Earth was turning under him, as they say, at the speed of where that so-called latitude was, he should have landed in the Pacific Ocean, but he didn't. He landed in New Mexico.
Yeah, Earth didn't turn underneath him. There was no 15 degrees an hour deviation under Felix Baumgartner. Now, they claim there's a 15 degrees an hour deviation underneath snipers, bullets and footballs, so it'd have to be something observable underneath that, because it's not attached to Earth anymore. Like the bullet and the football aren't attached to Earth anymore for us to observe, not actual drift, because we're turning underneath a football, then we'd have to observe not actual drift as we turn under Felix Baumgartner. And if we're turning underneath him, Earth's turning underneath him, and the continent that he went up from wouldn't be underneath him anymore when he came back down a prolonged period later.